Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In today's video, I want to talk to you about cardiac output. It's an interesting concept when we talk about cardiorespiratory fitness. It's generally a term that's important to know, and just kind of understanding the concept of it will actually help you as a trainer. Why? A number of reasons, but really the main one that I have seen, or why it would be used or have any significance, is because clients do come in with cardiovascular or cardiorespiratory issues. Anybody that has had some sort of cardiac event at any level of severity probably should at least be spoken to or understood with their physician about things like cardiac output and the related components of stroke volume and ejection fraction. Again, these are terms, I shouldn't say clinical terms, but they're medical terms that are generally used by clinicians, and they have extreme significance when individuals have cardiovascular and or cardiorespiratory issues. So what is cardiac output? Well, I mean, in the simplest way to put it, it's the total amount of blood that is ejected by the heart in a minute's time. Okay, you get that? The total amount of blood in milliliters generally that is ejected by the heart in a minute. So if I have a stopwatch and okay, so I can feel my heart beating, that's good. If I could measure the amount of blood that gets ejected, right? Every time my heart goes like that out of my left ventricle, and here's my timer. And I start the timer and I can measure every time my heart beats, it pumps out whatever, certain amount of milliliters of blood from the left ventricle. At the end of 60 seconds, boop, I total that up and it's whatever that number is. That's what we call cardiac output, okay? Now, real quick, let me just give you the equation. Cardiac output, and this is one of the things to remember, and you're going to probably get tested on it somewhere along the line, so it's important to know. So cardiac output, and yes, there's a little dot on the top, cardiac output is equal to what we call the stroke volume, SV. Stroke volume is simply the amount of blood that, okay, for the sake of what we deal with, the left ventricle. Okay, so the stroke volume is the amount of blood that the left ventricle ejects out of the left ventricle every beat. Hope that makes sense. So you can feel your heart beating, right? So if I can just isolate and hone in on just the left ventricle, it goes right, and it beats a certain number of beats per minute, and there's a certain amount of blood that is ejected out. That's what the term ejection is. So ejection is the amount of blood. Now, there is another term called ejection fraction. Very interesting, because just as a mechanical pump, the amount of blood that goes into the left ventricle, right, whatever that amount is, only a percentage of it actually gets squeezed out on every beat of the left ventricle. And that amount, right, in milliliters is generally termed the ejection fraction. So if you had 100 milliliters of blood in the left ventricle, then if the ejection fraction was 80%, then every beat of the heart, every beat of the left ventricle would pump out what? 80 milliliters of blood, right? So if you got 100 in the left ventricle, it pumps out 80 milliliters of the 100. That would be an ejection fraction of 80%. These are, by the way, these are critical concepts and numbers to know if you have clients who have had cardiac events. And so the doctor would, their physician, if you were able to talk to them, or they could tell you that their physician told them, my ejection fraction is this, my ejection fraction is this. Very important concepts, just so you understand. I don't want to get off on ejection fraction, but I just find this stuff absolutely amazing, very interesting. But back to cardiac output. It is the stroke volume multiplied by the heart rate. So I hope that makes sense. It's a really simple, can you see that? It's a really simple equation. Why is it important, though? Well, it's important because cardiac output, now think about it. What we're saying is that the total amount of blood that gets pumped out is always determined by the amount of blood each beat and the total number of beats per minute. So what is your heart rate? My heart rate is 50 beats per minute. It's 80 beats per minute. It's 70 beats per minute, whatever, 90 beats per minute. I hope that makes sense. The key here, and to answer some confused minds, what's the difference then between resting cardiac output and exercise cardiac? Well, obviously, it is the heart rate that is the big determinant, okay, as to how cardiac output changes when you're doing exercise. Now, remember, at rest, what is your heart rate? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, your heart rate is 60 beats per minute. Okay, now keep in mind, this is important to know. At 60 beats per minute, if your stroke volume, and by the way, average, average stroke volume, it could be anywhere from, 50, 60, 70, depending on how big the person is, how much you weigh, 80, even 90 milliliters. You can have stroke volume of fairly significant. So the range is, somewhere between 50, 100, 105, 55, something like that. So stroke volumes, right, are going to vary based on your size, your body weight, things like that. But let's say for the sake of argument, my stroke volume is 100 milliliters, right? So every time at rest, my heart pumps out 100 milliliters of blood and I'm at 60 beats per minute. What is my cardiac output? Stroke volume, which is 100 milliliters times 60. So 100 times 60, what's that? 6,000 milliliters. So that's your cardiac output. Here's the deal, is that when you exercise, what changes? Well, stroke volume changes. It does, but that's not the real variable that changes a whole lot. It's heart rate. And so cardiac output changes significantly when you start to exercise. Here's the key, is that when you go back, when you're resting, a more fit individual, everything else being equal, same person, more fit individual will tend to have what? A lower resting heart rate. Why? Because at the end of the day, cardiac output at rest, unless your body weight changes significantly, should not change a whole lot at rest. What exercise does is it strengthens the heart and increases, check this out, resting stroke volume. That's the key. If cardiac output essentially stays the same, if that side of the equation doesn't change and this side of the equation, heart rate, goes down at resting, it can only mean that stroke volume went up. That's a good thing, folks. So this equation tells us a lot. Everything else being equal, I would like to see my clients after a week, 2 weeks, a month, a couple of months of consistent cardio respiratory training. I want to see their resting heart rate going down. If that is the case, again, everything else being equal, no pathologies, no issues. If I see resting heart rate go down by a couple of beats per minute, that tells me one thing: their heart got stronger, at least the left ventricle got stronger, and it is pumping out more blood on every beat, i.e., the stroke volume went up. Now, I hope this was helpful within the context of this one particular equation. As always, look, if you understood this, if you got this and it started to click, then go ahead in the comment, write understood. That's critical, because that helps us to know that what we're doing is providing some benefit to you. So again, in the comment section, if this made sense to you and you understood what I just explained in this video, go ahead and write understood. And as always, by the way, if you have not done so, make sure you subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, and as well, go to the Facebook group. If you haven't gone there, go into the private Facebook group, get in there, and interact with the other students, and let us know how we can be of assistance. As always, our goal is to help you to become a certified industry-leading personal fitness trainer, and have a great weekend. And again, let us know if we can be of assistance. Take care. Bye.